Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wholesale Change, the webcast and podcast from Distribution Strategy Group, where we offer thought leadership for wholesale change agents like you, because if you're on this show, you probably are a wholesale change agent. My name's Ian Heller. I'll be your co-host today, along with the master, the merchant of math and mirth, the doctor of distribution, my business partner, Jonathan Bein, PhD. Jonathan, how are you this morning, my friend?
Well, Ian, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about today's show. Can't wait to get started. We've got a fantastic guest who has more to share than we can possibly get to. So let's get to it. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, which is HVACR. So HVACR sponsored the Wholesale Change Show for several months now. We really appreciate it. They're really here for the hardworking businesses that keep the world turning. They're for the companies who make, deliver, and sell everything that we need. They trust HVACR to help them do business better, and they work hand in hand with their customers to get to know their businesses almost as well as they do. Their innovative solutions are carefully curated to fit their needs and built to respond flexibly to their fast-changing reality. HVACR accelerates every customer's ambitions, whether that's to grow and transform or simply to become more productive and efficient and effective. That's what makes HVACR essential partners for the world's most essential businesses. Thanks again to HVACR for your sponsorship. We really appreciate it. You make this show possible. And so I'd like to bring in our guest now. He is the CEO of Gustave Larson Company. His name is Andrew Larson. Larson, thank you Andrew, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thanks, Ian. Pleasure to be here.
So you have been the CEO and chairman of Gustave Larson for a long time, and you are also the CEO of Applied Product Solutions. You're a trustee on the University of Colorado for the University of Colorado Foundation and a mentor at the Watson Institute for, I think that's for entrepreneurs. And you've got an MBA from Kellogg, like I do. They probably brag about you though. And you have a BS in business from the University of Southern California. So why don't you walk us through those roles real quickly and tell us what they're all about?
Happy to. I'll just hit a couple of quick highlights. But at the Gustave Larson Company, we are celebrating our 85th anniversary this year, which we're really excited about. My grandfather, Gus, founded the company, and I took it over, my brother and I, from our father, Carl. Super proud. That really is our base wholesale distribution business in HVAC and refrigeration. Again, with our primary customers being the refrigeration contractor, the commercial mechanical contractor, and also the residential heating contractor. On the applied product solution side, that business we founded about, almost 8 years ago, based in Salt Lake City, Utah, really primarily on the applied and heavy commercial side. And I think the real insight it's provided us is it's allowed us to really focus on this whole new electrification trend that we're seeing happen in a lot of countries, states like California. They want to be their own country. Here where we live in Boulder, Colorado as well. And so it's allowed us to really be in the cutting edge of that new trend. With regard to the trustee at the University of Colorado, that's been a real interesting aspect that's been near and dear to my heart, where we have a Larson HVAC systems lab at the College of Engineering.
Wow, that's really cool.
To both provide endowments for the lab, but also to sponsor engineering students each year to hopefully give back and bring them to our industry, especially with a shortage of talent happening around. And last, just to hit on that, with regard to Watson, it's an entrepreneurship institute based here in Boulder, Colorado. They've got an affiliation with the University of Colorado at Boulder Business School, and I'm just really proud to mentor students there each semester.
So Andrew, this is where I link into your background, because I'm an alum of the engineering school.
Yep.
I did my graduate work there, and then I teach in the business school. So good to have your participation on both sides.
Small world.
Yeah,
I feel left out, but we'll go on anyway. So that's fantastic. And it's great that you give back to the community that way. So when you talk to engineers about working in the HVAC industry, what's their openness to that?
I think we've had a real it's really evolved over the years, where the lab, in the beginning, we ended up having a lot of, master students really focused on their PhD. And we've tried to really evolve that to really, focusing all of our scholarships, except for the lab directors and the lab help, on undergrad students so they can really come back to the industry. I think they're really open to it. And especially today with these new trends that they're seeing of renewable energy and wind and solar, to really make sure we can drive towards this electrification trend and away from coal plants. They're super green focused. I think these kids in the engineering college just have a tremendous amount of talent. They inspire me.
So yeah, so it's interesting because I know there was a point in time where someone told me that it was harder to get mechanical engineers into the HVAC industry, but I sense, based on what you're describing, that that's really changing because this is innovative stuff now.
I think we're seeing, one by one, it's changing. I mean, we can probably have, I wish we could make a bigger impact, but there's probably, 10 to 15 students that go through the lab each year. So we're able to place a few students, in our industry. We're trying to really get our all of our suppliers involved. So far, we've seen them have some great feedback on projects the students have worked on. And we're taking that next step to make sure we've got those great students that can work at those companies who then want to keep recruiting time after time from the lab.
Fantastic. And one of the things we want to ask you about, Andrew, today was, you've just gone through this experience of emerging from the pandemic, or I guess you're probably still in it to some degree. What were your experiences during the pandemic that you can apply to the future? And, what did you do during the pandemic? And in terms of, I don't know, people working from home or making remote sales calls, et cetera. And, how are you readjusting to the new normal, as a lot of people call it? And what do you think you're going to do differently on an ongoing basis as a result of those experiences?
Well, that's certainly a big question. And I think we're focused on that every single day. So maybe I'll try to direct that a little bit. I think we've all talked ad nauseum about all of our focus on Zoom calls and remote work and stuff. And let's really focus on maybe this year. I mean, we alone, we were down in 2020. And especially because a couple of our segments, refrigeration, commercial HVAC, a lot of those projects got delayed till this year. We had a lot of supply chain issues kind of appear in 2020. That has been a huge, issue that we've seen this year as well, coming out, hopefully, of this pandemic. So far for 2021, we're up 24%. It's been a tremendous beginning to the year. And again, our commercial HVAC segment, because a lot of those projects have been postponed till this year, is going gangbusters. We're up 30% there as an example. And we're still up another 30% in residential heating. But it's coming across many different segments. I think the weather's played a huge part. There's been pent-up demand. We just talked about the projects that were delayed. And I think, the supply chain, we have had a tremendous amount of inventory that we've had to order to make sure that we're not hit by these supply chain issues. Lead times have extended, 18 to 20 weeks in many cases. So I think a lot of our customers are also telling all their customers, order now. So we're getting a lot more orders now because we can't get the product for so long. So there's a lot of issues and reasons why, we're up so far right now. But what we've tried to focus on, I've shared with you guys personally in the past, we've done a Salesforce transformation, and it took us a year and a half in the planning, and just by happenstance, we happened to release that April 1 of 2020, right essentially when COVID hit. And it was really a blessing for us because that omni-channel transformation allowed us to take our outside sales team members and put many of them into pods so they could call in customers directly by the phone. But we were prepared for that with our systems and having Salesforce and a customer pipeline management tool behind the scenes. With your sponsor Epicor, we had switched to a P21 system 2 years before that. So we'd kind of the baseline of our future software system there as well. But that allowed us to really stay in touch with our customers super well throughout this pandemic. And I think one of the things and lessons we've learned is we've said, okay, how do we continue to evolve? We call our Salesforce Transformation team Gus, after my grandfather Gus's name. And us being, we're on a team together, and it's really omni-channel. But we've kind of had a Team Gus 2.0, if you will, to make sure we're addressing how do we keep getting better. And as we've come out of the pandemic, a lot of our customers thought that we're only calling them on the phone or doing Zoom calls. And we're like, this whole concept is about omni-channel. It's how do you, the customer, want to buy? If you want to buy on the phone, fantastic. And we're seeing that from all, from the millennials, the Gen Zs that want to, keep calling me on Zoom, be more efficient. I want to work on your e-commerce site. But a lot of the baby boomers still want that face-to-face call. So we've had, as an example, one of our goals for the second quarter is to call on every single customer face-to-face, which is a bold initiative.
Wow.
Really to understand, what are their needs? How do they want to purchase from us? What's important to them? So we can then tailor that, our Team Gus omni-channel experience to them. That customer engagement really was a real big, strong initiative for us coming out of COVID. And one of the learnings to make sure that we are re-engaging with them. And so that really has been, I think, really well received. And so that's been super exciting. So that's kind of one area. I think another area, looking internally, coming out of this pandemic as well, we had remote work for most of our corporate office. Again, most of our branch locations, we've got 50 plus branch locations in 20 different states. Our team had to work, at the location to really serve our customers and deliver product and things like that. But what we did find is coming out of this pandemic, we've probably had more retirements than we anticipated. We have 450 employees, and we had a few months ago, 50 open positions.
Wow.
That's a lot of open positions.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find great people today. So we've had a whole nother initiative on our employee and branch engagement. How do we understand our front lines? How do we understand our own processes? As one example, our leadership team has said, listen, we're going to go visit every one of our locations in the next quarter. We're going to go work at all of our locations as well. Personally, I've worked at 3 of our locations in the last few weeks. Worked in our warehouse, worked on the counter. I think it was super well received. And it was super fun. I was inspired by this young talent we've got. It makes me excited for the future, but we really want every person to, understand how they contribute to Larson and also to our customer success. So that branch engagement's been a whole nother initiative, I think, coming out of the pandemic. That's been very important for us.
So Andrew,
question?
I've got a question, but I also want to point out to our audience that we love to get your questions. And you can ask them as a question. You can toss them in the chat, whichever way they come. We'll try to answer them. Could you expand more on what happened in your Salesforce transformation? I know that's a big initiative for a lot of companies these days. What did you do? What was different? What worked?
Boy, well, so we really helped use Justin Roth Marsh's book, about kind of the death of field sales, if you will, as kind of a guide. We didn't follow it directly, but it really was kind of a guiding light for us to say, listen, there's so many things going on around us today. And I talked about some of those with regard to generational shifts and moving to make sure that we're selling to the way that the new generations want to buy from us. But as we know, we've discussed here so much, and I don't want to jump too much into it, but obviously the Amazon experience, that all of our customers as consumers are aware of. We're obviously seeing, Elon Musk with his 42,000 satellites, the whole world is going digital. So how do we help our customers, go digital? And that's a whole nother initiative we can talk about later on, which we're very focused on. So we're trying to say, how do we hit on all these different areas across the board and make sure that we are taking care of our customers and moving them to the future along with us? We've always tried to be progressive in the way that we act, and we want to be pushing that envelope of how we, can grow faster than everyone else and get that lead advantage. So we had 90 outside sales people previously, and we have essentially reorganized those outside salespeople. That's besides all of our support teams we had and all of our branch inside sales team members and counters team members. So what we've done is we separated those really into some what we call business development managers that are focused 100% on new customers. Again, I didn't mention this, but one of the challenges we found looking at those 90 outside sales team members was that with looking at kind of a buckets of time analysis, they spent so much time traveling, doing quotes, working on customer service issues behind the scenes that realistically only 10% of their time was spent on new customers.
Wow.
And so that wasn't nearly enough to drive the kind of growth that we want to have and expect for the future. And those BDMs, those positions allow us essentially by one person to essentially have 10 times as much focus on those new customers in the future. We then also reorganized a lot of our other outside sales team members into some pods that are both focused on inbound calls, which are customer experience reps, and then other territory managers that focus on outbound. And that outbound can be on the phone, but it can also be going to call on that customer out in the field as well. It's again, how that customer wants to be served. So that's how we've kind of organized a little bit of it. But the three basic buckets for us were sales, service, and support. So we also have support teams behind that to really help make sure we've got quoting, proposals done, a lot of specialists with regard to specific product lines. We've got a Mitsubishi product line where that electrification trend is happening a tremendous amount. Other specialists working on new construction, and then also on the commercial construction side as well. So those are examples of how this, we've got this entire web and network of support for our customers as well. That's hard to see.
I'm showing the Machine by Justin Roth-Marsh, but my cool background doesn't permit me to show this cool book. So I'm curious because he came from the tech world, and the model that he describes works impeccably for the tech world. I sort of view it as requiring adaptation for the distribution world. I'm curious what you found.
100%. I think that's what we had to do by doing that. And a big part is if Justin advocates that you're going to have an inbound, outbound pod only calling on the phone to customers. And we are in a huge transition now from, again, our baby boom generations now to the millennials, Gen Zs. And as a result, they want to be called on differently. So you cannot call on the baby boomers by a telephone. If they want to be called on in person, we're going to do that. And that's how we want to take care of our customers. So that's an example of an adaptation as well. But we've also, he says, have lead generation. So we now have a lead generation specialist as a start to really help our teams drive, leads to call on new customers, in addition to all the additional ways that they found customers previously as well.
So a quick question for you. So first of all, what you're saying is this notion of outbound account managers only being on the phone. You're more nuanced than that.
Correct.
They are mostly making outbound calls, but there are times when they need to be there in person, and they're empowered to do that if necessary.
Exactly.
Okay. And then the question is, so as you know, I come from a marketing background, and I focused over time less on generating leads. I mean, you do as a natural course of you sending out marketing offers, et cetera. And I shared those with the Salesforce, but for the most part, they didn't follow up on them. But, we didn't have a structure like yours where there were people who specialized in that. But what I oriented my marketing departments to do was to generate a first transaction, because if I could get a first purchase, I had a lot more customer information, and I, could start pitching them on, applying for an open account, et cetera. Have you guys tried that, or do you do marketing that focuses on trying to get that first transaction and then, pulling them on board after that?
Yeah, let me just go back for one quick second on your first comment about, with Justin Roth-Marsh. One other thing we found, with our outside sales team members is that when they were calling in customers, the capacity, they could call in 4 customers a day. Whereas those outbound territory managers calling in the phones can make 25 to 30, real sales conversations per day. So the capacity and the ability for us for the future to have that flex and adaptation allows us to really call in so many more customers in the market and drive more growth in our business as well, while still having, when they do go outside, focused on those customers that still want to be called on personally, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, et cetera. Obviously our capacity goes down on those days. So that was the first thing, another rationale as to why we wanted to have some of that transformation. Now, jumping to your question in terms of the first, transaction, if you will, we look at it in the same way. We kind of call it differently. I mean, all of our customers are out there for the most part and have been there for a while. So if we're going to get a purchase from a customer, it's because we're getting that at the expense of someone else in our industry. And so for us, if we're calling an example on another equipment distributor, we want to create that relationship like you talked about with the first transactions. We may call on them and talk about all the parts and pieces we sell. We may want to talk to them about the electrification trend and how we can help with regard to that. But all the time we're leading with Larson. We're leading with the value we deliver, who we are, how we can help them and support them. And then let's open that door on a different angle besides maybe their main equipment relationship to get that first transaction. So that's an example of how we kind of, lead with Larson and focus on, again, that first transaction in a little bit different way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's really progressive. I mean, I don't see a lot of companies doing that kind of thing. And I assume that you have to do a lot of work to develop a detailed customer database at the account and at the contact level within accounts, as well as a prospecting database. Is that something you've invested a lot of resources in?
Well, I think as many of us have done, I mean, our contact database was our salesperson's, Rolodex and
Right.
their Excel spreadsheet. And so what we did, again, this worked out perfectly coming into 2020, is we made the conversion to a Salesforce, system that's allowed us to really create a customer pipeline management tool. It's been adopted wonderfully, which was one of our concerns going into it, hearing how a lot of times the sales team doesn't want to focus on inputting information on the CRM system. But we really have said, listen, if it didn't get put in Salesforce, it didn't happen. And so anything they've done doesn't matter. So all of the things we've done on the internal side, we have something called SMX, which is Sales Management Excellence, but it revolves around coaching and going on calls with our sales team members. And that really, doesn't count again unless it was put in the Salesforce system.
Right.
So that's been a wonderful tool for us. And it's been, the timing was perfect because we brought it in January 2020.
Wow. How did you drive adoption of Salesforce? There are a lot of statistics that say that half of all CRM implementations fail. Our view tends to be if they're done to help the sales rep, they're more likely to succeed versus if they're in electronic form of the old call reports. But I don't know. What's your experience?
I think that was our concern, as I mentioned, going in was adoption.
Right.
And I think certainly our leadership team's been focused on it. As we said, if it didn't go in Salesforce, it didn't happen.
Right.
We in particular have an additional, person that Nikki Cook and our team was focused, on helping all of our team members with Salesforce and enabling, them with that. And so I think across the board, we've just been aligned that this is the tool we're using for the future, and there's no choice but for them to use it. So it's kind of been both the carrot and the stick, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think I get that, but I think there are other companies that have taken that approach where it's mandated, it's not optional, and they've still failed because, account managers will find a way around it if they don't want to comply. So if it's not a specific thing that you did, is it a cultural a trust in the culture, in a belief that you're really trying to do the right thing for the account managers? Because it is unusual for that adoption to go so well, I think. So I appreciate the processes and the focus and the directive, but there's got to be something else. Maybe it's cultural that's driving adoption.
There may be. We're a year and a half in. We think we've had tremendous adoption so far.
Yeah, right.
But you talk about culture, and I mean that's a huge thing for us. I mean, we hire, fire, lead, coach, all based on our values. And so that is a big part of it. We've also had we kind of call it 100% accountability initiative in the business too, with 0% blame, 0% justification. And I think we've just had a tremendous amount of alignment. And so it may be cultural as well. I think we previously, even though we wanted to think culturally that we were all doing things because of the culture, that there were outliers there. So we've had a big focus on who's the right person, which means do they live our values? And are they in the right seat in the business, which means do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it in that role? And as we've moved on the journey with getting that right person in the right seat in our business, I think culturally that has been a big part of it too. So I think you're hitting on something.
I also think it's notable that you're working in the warehouse. I mean, I think that gets around the organization, right? So when the leadership is actually participating in the front lines, it really changes the way that you're perceived in my experience. And because it's authentic, right? I mean, the typical experience is the corporate person comes to the branch for a branch visit, but then they're really sitting in the conference room on their computer most of the time. So I think things like that are meaningful.
Yeah, it was really wonderful for me to work in a warehouse and really actually work alongside our team members, live our processes, and understand how efficient are they? What can we do differently? How can we be better? I think that was really wonderful as well.
Jonathan, you were talking earlier, and you know more about this than I do. You had a question about marketing that Larson does on behalf of their customers or the training?
You bet. So, we look at one of the themes in this show is where in the customer's organization are you adding value? So are you adding value to inbound logistics? Are you adding value to the core operation? Are you adding value to service, sales, and marketing? By the way, think Michael Porter value chain as I mentioned these terms, right? A lot of distributors are focused on that inbound. Some are focused on operations. But you mentioned, and I know this from prior discussions, that you're helping your customers with marketing. Love to hear more about that.
Yeah, happy to share. I think we've had an initiative in our business. We call it C2, and C2 stands for our customer's customer. So it's really about how do we help our customers, succeed with their customers. And if we're going to do that, then they're going to be loyal to us and buy from us. So that kind of guides a lot of the initiatives we're focused on. And I guess in one way, we have done a lot to add value to our customers across the board with the services we provide, with services we offer. We offer crane trucks or things like that to help them get a product to the job site and not have to schedule a crane separately. So different value-added services. But on the marketing side, historically we have worked with, we've got an initiative called Larson Business Solutions. We've worked with a lot of third-party providers to help also deliver content, product, systems to our customers. And it's been an evolution for us. So I'll kind of walk through that. But first, with the third-party providers, we work with them to really help drive growth and profitability in our customers' business. One example, we've worked historically with some different organizations, one called Business Development Resources, again, to help actually teach our customers how to understand their financials, do job costing, make a double-digit net profit, how to upsell, how to make more money in each particular job. And that's been a really important initiative for a lot of our dealers that we work with. Additionally, we've worked with other companies like a company called Search Kings. They work with Google Local Services, where we help our customers get Google guaranteed and kind of the new yellow pages of the future, but to go digital and really drive leads in their business and show them through that how they can drive growth in their business as well. So those are just a couple examples. There's lots of other ones helping them automate the front end and back end of their workflow in their business. Again, those are a lot of third-party solutions where we also allow our customers through their purchases to help pay for the relationship with those companies as well. So it becomes kind of symbiotic and a win-win. Where we're evolving to is, again, through the pandemic, we've realized that historically, most of the value we've delivered to our customers, we got paid for in the form of our gross margin. And we recognize that for the future, with the Amazons coming in the future, that we've got to make sure we are creating a more sticky relationship with the customer. And how do we help drive products and services in the future that they're willing to pay for outside of what our traditional product has been? So along this avenue, we have brought out a new segment in our business. We call it Services and Solutions. We brought in a new leader of that segment in January of 2020, again, right before the pandemic hit. And with a product development background. And so we're really focused on what are the new services we can release to our customers that, again, help drive both new value creation and a new revenue stream for us, but at the same time, bring our relationship even closer. And so we have through this, we've developed an innovation pipeline. We're trying to make sure that we've got a multitude of projects going on behind the scenes, but we're really focused on, again, how do these services help our customers, drive success and growth with their customers? So those are a couple examples.
That's extraordinary. I mean, the customers that have taken you up on this must just absolutely love it, right? I mean, if you are actually making them more profitable, how much stickier does it get, right?
It's amazing. Some of our best relationships are those customers, again, that have that double-digit net profit. And we came to them in the beginning, and the pitch really was, according to the industry average, the average net profit for a contractor was 2%. And so our pitch has been really, how would you like to make a double-digit net profit? And come and learn and come and grow and evolve with us. And when that happens, they become some of our most loyal customers. It's been really wonderful. Now that was historically. Now we're taking that to the next level. Not just, you can't on the profitability side. That has got to continue because that's so important. But we're trying to take it on the stickiness as well with other customers and with new customers by bringing them these new services as well. So that's still evolving for us, because we are just releasing those. We're a year and a half into this new initiative.
So let's come back around to the marketing. So the marketing for an HVAC contractor is a tricky thing. We actually worked with, do you know Applewood in Denver?
I do.
Yeah, so they're plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. And the CEO there likes to come off as kind of a simple Kansas plumber. He's way, way smarter than that, I assure you. But one of the things that they did was they were kind of last man standing in Yellow Pages. And they were getting a lot of business from Yellow Pages. But Yellow Pages has kind of gone the way of the dodo at this point. And I'm curious what you see helps them drive leads. Because I think I mentioned to you before the show, we've looked at a number of companies in HVAC who are doing lead gen. We've barely seen that outside of HVAC. So I'm curious, what you're seeing there.
That's a good question. I think we've seen this evolution where we used to do a lot of TV advertising with our customers, radio, newspaper, and Yellow Pages. And that was what we did historically. And now we're trying to help drive them all towards the digital, for the future. So what is the digital version of that for the future? And how fast are people moving towards that? Certainly, Yellow Pages are essentially gone. Our customers they're not finding leads that way. So that's where, Search Kings and working with Google Local Services has helped drive a tremendous amount of leads that way. When we look at TV advertising, we used to do advertising clubs with our dealers and collect money from them ourselves and the manufacturer really to be able to buy down and get discounted leads and or discounted advertisements on television across the board. And we're seeing that decline. We're still seeing some newspaper, some radio still, but we're seeing those really change for the future. Another third party we've worked with a lot of direct mail and email companies as well, because you're seeing some of that go digital that direction, as an example. So we work with our customers to have those direct mail campaigns similarly. So you'll see a lot of things in your mail that we help with our customers also. So that's kind of the evolution, and it's towards digital. So we've really tried to, be the digital leader with our customers. We've converted our entire marketing department towards digital and are trying to help them do the same, through creating their own websites, helping them build those and add these tools to that, tool belt.
So, yeah, I mean, I know we're on Nextdoor in our neighborhood, and so people share recommendations. Right. And so it feels like that whole, peer recommendation trend is going to continue. And so, and I do see some contractors advertise on those kind of applications. And it feels like if you're not on there, you're just not where people are going anymore.
Yeah. Ian, the one in particular that's worked well for our customers actually has been Angie's List.
Okay.
And that's been a little more focused for them.
Sure. We do have someone who's listening who has a question for you. This is from Dean. How did you go about, so this is going back to your director of services or whatever that person is that came out of product development. So just at a high level, how do you go about selecting and developing those services, and how do you measure them? And what's the reaction from your customers? I think, other than the marketing services, the other services that you're doing, I think, to create revenue for you, I would assume. How do you go through that process? Because as you know, for most distributors, it's kind of like they respond to a specific customer need and they create this ad hoc service. It's not really, developed like a product would be for a manufacturer.
So a couple things. I mean, we started this in January of 2020. Our goal was to release at least one service to our customers by the end of 2020, being the first year. Obviously, a couple months later, COVID hit. All hands on deck. Is the business even going to survive after last, April, May, as an example, things like that. So a lot of things happened and there was a lot of disruption, but we were able to release our first service actually by the end of the year to a pilot of customers. And so that's been, we kind of didn't quite hit our goal, but we came pretty darn close. But we've really had to, it's been like creating a whole new, the whole concept of entrepreneurship, right? Creating a whole new business within our existing business. And a startup in the business. So we've had to create this whole new product development, focus on the services side. We were able, through the pandemic, to bring in a bunch of interns, as well last summer remotely to really help, drive that initiative forward as well. But we've kind of created this innovation, pipeline funnel where we look at, the ideation is kind of the first step in that funnel as an example. And then looking at how do we validate that problem in kind of the discovery phase. And then we look at validating the solution in the design phase. And we're moving down to development of that particular model, and then in the go-to-market side, and then commercializing it, and then looking at that entire life cycle of that particular product. So that's kind of our innovation pipeline. But we're still early in this process. I think it's more the inspiration and the thought process of where this is going to take us and change our business for the future. So we've got 5 different things we're focused on right now. We've released one. We're in pilot stage with another. So it's super exciting. I don't know if that answered all those questions there. So
yeah, no, I think it's good. It's good. Another question is, how do you manage compensation in an environment where you've got lead generation people and you've got account management people who are working over the phone, and then some that are more outside, and you've probably got accounts migrating between those groups? It must be difficult and complex to figure out how to give people proper compensation based on their contribution.
I think that certainly is true. I think if you go, again, going back to the book we talked about with Justin Roth-Marsh, he would advocate, right, for those inside and outbound sales teams to have basically 0 at-risk compensation, which is kind of counter to the way we've done things in history and in our industry. And so we have adapted there. We have not gone to that. We still think that when the company wins, every one of our team members wins as well. And so it's a really complex question, right? So we've got individual comp plans for each one of those different groups. Certainly happy to follow up with someone individually if they want to email me. I think that was in your opening slide there, and maybe closing slide later. Happy to talk more in depth. But bottom line is we try and have a component in each person's compensation that relates to both their individual success and then also to the team success. And so that's pretty simplistic.
Yeah, that means, look, all compensation systems have their positives and negatives. There's no perfect program. In my experience, let's see if you agree with this. In my experience, the simplicity of the program or the ease of people understanding it is as important as the equity of it. If it's hard for them to understand, they just assume it's not equitable.
I would agree. I mean, earlier in my career, I had a compensation, plan I put out, and I put down maybe 7 different components where everyone had actually the ability to make a difference in every one of those components, where they could really win and make it, a terrific opportunity for them to win. But it was just too complex, right? And so part of that, as you said, is keeping it simple, but making sure they understand every component and how they play a part. So the education piece and communication piece is really important.
So you've driven a lot of change in your organization. I think you said you did a new ERP a couple of years ago, I think, and you put in or upgraded a CRM, and you've got a new sales system and a service development process. That's a whole lot of change. And you had to do a lot of that through or, in spite of a pandemic. How do you manage change management? What are the biggest challenges when you think about how to drive change, and how do you manage the communication and implementation of it?
It's obviously you just talked about it, keep it simple, right? Mm-hmm. We use a process in our business called EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system. There's a book written about it called Traction. And part of that is really just, focus on the top priorities that can make the biggest impact in the business. And so if we could say one thing for our business, over the last 4 years, we would say, 4 years ago, it was new ERP system. Now, obviously that took 2 years for us to build up to be able to hit go for that year, but that was the one big thing. 3 years ago, it was sales transformation. 2 years ago, it was services and solutions. This year, it's really about getting back to that, coming out of COVID, that extraordinary service that our customers deserve through, employee engagement and customer engagement. So we're trying to focus on one big thing, and obviously there's a lot of tentacles beneath that. And the other key thing is communication. The other thing we've learned throughout COVID, we had, weekly videos, weekly communication to every one of our team members throughout 2020, during the pandemic, and they loved that communication. This year, coming out of the pandemic, there wasn't a new CDC, guidance coming every week. We didn't have weekly communication. It's probably even down to monthly. And they're like, what happened to the weekly? We love that. And so that's another thing, both from, coming out of the pandemic, but also in terms of our initiatives getting them done. It's communication, communication, communication. And because we're all humans, we all do great for a while and fail at that. We got to really stay on top of that. So that's a big, big one for us.
What do you do to keep your employees up to speed? I mean, you mentioned you have this link with the lab at CU. So I'm certain that you're aware of how to do this. I'm just curious in practice, what do you do?
For training, you mean, Jonathan?
For training, yeah.
For our own team members internally. Yeah. I think we've tried to start with a digital initiative. We have something called LLC, which is the Larson Learning Center, where we tried to take all the historic learning that we did in our industry in books and bring it digitally for our people to learn online. And so that's one initiative we've tried to focus on. But in addition to that, and as we're coming out of the pandemic, what we've always done too is when we have customer education sessions, whether it's learning how to make more money in their business or it's more sales oriented or more service oriented, we want our employees to attend those as well. So they, are with the customer to develop that relationship, but also to learn similarly. But I think it kind of starts with our maybe our coaching process, and we have a personal development plan for all of our team members, and that really is how do we help you grow along the way, and that really is a more prescribed, focused plan for each person.
And you were right at the top of this broadcast. You shared a lot of information about your company's growth. What do you share with your team members? Do they have a quarterly update on financial performance or?
Exactly. That's I mean, you've already said it right there. I mean, it's communication. We have a quarterly, we call it SOC, State of the Company meeting every quarter, and we talk about. We go into our financials. We go into what our initiatives are. We go into a Q&A session with the entire company, and we make sure it's called Ask Gus. We have an email, to take questions in advance, and then during the meeting, and to make sure we follow up on every one of those after the meeting as well. In addition, we've got, a newsletter that goes out monthly, and so we're writing things in there as well, in addition to all the email updates. And last Friday, we've got something called Snapcoms now, where we also do video updates. So I just did a video to our entire company on Friday afternoon. We had an amazing week. It was super busy. And for us to be down 50 people, but be up 24% is putting a huge strain on our team members. And so it really was a thank you to really just, have a great weekend and to say, listen, thank you for everything you're doing for us, for our customers, and that we are there to support them. And so
I'm imagining some really long days on their part in the, when you're down 50 people and you're up 24%. Yeah.
Yep. And we all know our summer months, even regardless of coming out of the pandemic, are usually double what a winter month is. We're that seasonal. So we always know mentally that those are going to be long days.
Fantastic. Well, Dan, this has been so helpful and so fascinating. You're truly ahead of the curve as a CEO and as a business. So I'm not sure if this will help, but where can people go if they're interested in working for your company and applying for one of those 50 open positions, Andrew?
I appreciate that. We're looking for great people all the time, but galarson.com is the website. And feel free to look through, our Larson Business Solutions, the different things we're focused on there. And the email is in the link, and happy to help anyone that was on the call today.
Fantastic. All right, good. So let me actually show your email address so people can contact you if they need to. It's on the bottom right. It's andrew.larson@galarson.com. And galarson.com is where you can look at their open positions. So please check that out if you're interested. Our next wholesale change episode is on July 21st. We're going to skip the 7th because it's a couple days after the holiday. We'll have Julie Copeland, who's the CEO of Arbel, which is a distributor of safety products, services, and technology. And don't miss our next broadcast that we're doing with the National Association of Wholesaler Distributors. It's called Channel Transformation from Supplier to Customer. We'll have some interesting feedback based on a survey that we've done of manufacturers who sell through distributors. You can go to naw.org/go/adding value to register for that. If you go to distributionstrategy.com, you can register for upcoming episodes of this show and look at our content. But, Andrew, I know you're so busy, and it was so gracious of you to take some of your time to share what you know and share your experiences with our audience. We really appreciate it.
Happy to spend the time. I'm honored. Thank you.
Great.
It's a pleasure to see somebody who knows their business so well. It's really fascinating always to hear that perspective.
Great.
And
Okay.
Changing.
Say again, Andrew.
And it's ever changing. So we've got to keep evolving. That's the rule.
Yeah, and I know you guys are really good with technology, and we actually have another webcast that's not on this slide called the 10X Tech Stack that's coming out on June 30th. We talk about technologies that can earn a 10X return on the investment in a short period of time. So make sure you go to distributionstrategy.com to see about that one as well. But anyway, thanks everyone for attending. We love to have you on the show, and we'll see you sometime in July. Thanks everybody. Bye now.